Imagine the scene. A pier in Florida, late afternoon, three guys lined up. The first two with expensive bait, $20 attractant spray, rods covered in brand stickers. In the middle of them, a gentleman with a faded cap, old t-shirt, using a simple 99-cent kitchen sponge hanging from his hook. 20 minutes later, his live well is full of catfish and crappie, while the other two are just changing bait and complaining about the wind. He looks, gives that sly smile and says, "You guys are fishing with credit cards. I'm fishing with old knowledge." If this is your first time here, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any secrets the industry tries to hide. This scene is no exaggeration. In several lakes in the United States, mainly in the South and Midwest, there are reports of people using pieces of sponge soaked with simple attractants and catching 3-4 times more fish than those using only professional bait. In a small lake in Texas, a guy decided to test it. One rod with a worm directly on the hook, another with the same worm, but attached to a small piece of yellow kitchen sponge. In 2 hours of fishing, the sponge rod brought 17 fish aboard. The other only caught 5. Same time, same depth, same line. The detail that changed the game was the way the sponge held and released the smell of food into the water. Old fishermen on the banks of the Mississippi River were already doing something similar with a piece of cloth and cooking grease, long before spray attractants existed on the shelves. These practices were passed down from grandfather to father, from father to son, until the stores started pushing expensive, well-packaged little jars, promising technology. But at the edge of the lake, what matters is still what the fish feels, not what's written on the packaging. We are living in the craziest era of fishing. There has never been so much technology, so much information thrown onto the internet. And yet, a lot of fishermen continue to return home with few catches, frustrated, without understanding why some guys always fill their live wells while they just take pictures of the river. What if the very strategies that even the most experienced anglers don't share publicly are what's missing from your fishing trips? Those invisible adjustments to water reading, spot selection, bait type, and decision-making that don't appear in YouTube videos, but completely change the outcome in practice. That's why the ebook High Level Fishing was created. A practical, straightforward guide where you discover the pillars that truly make a difference in fishing and learn to apply, step by step, the same strategies that the most successful anglers use in the water. This isn't just another superficial resource repeating obvious tips. Here you'll truly understand how to think like a high-level fisherman, how to read the environment, choose your spots better, adjust your techniques, and prepare intelligently for each outing, greatly increasing your chances of catching more fish in less time. Download now using the link pinned in the first comment. Please note, this special offer from $90 to just $14.92 is available for a limited time only and may be discontinued at any time. And the kitchen sponge trick comes in exactly here. You take a piece of that cheap item that every American has in their sink and turn it into a mini scent reservoir that constantly releases food signals around your bait. It sounds crazy, but the way fish sense the world explains perfectly why this works so well in lakes and rivers across the U.S., from Missouri to Georgia. Fish don't live by sight, they live by smell and vibration. Underwater, especially in murky water, smell is much more important than sight. Studies with freshwater species show that amino acids released by food, natural oils, and other compounds spread and activate extremely sensitive receptors in the fish's nostrils, triggering that feeding mode even when it wasn't that interested in eating. It works almost like when you smell a hamburger on the street even after you've already had dinner. You didn't need it, but you crave it. Along with this, the fish's lateral line perceives small currents and movements, So any bait that creates a cloud of particles and a consistent scent trail becomes a beacon saying, "There's food here." The sponge does exactly that. It sucks up the fragrant liquid, holds it for a long time, and releases it gradually, creating a cloud of chemical signals that remains at the right point. To put this idea into practice, you need simple ingredients, the kind you find at neighborhood markets in the United States. Write this down: 1 inexpensive kitchen sponge, without the metal scrubbing part, preferably yellow or white. 2 tablespoons of fish oil or oil from canned sardines. 1 teaspoon of garlic powder or granulated garlic, the kind used for seasoning. 1 teaspoon of salt. For less than $3, you can prepare supplies for several fishing trips. And if you use leftover fish oil from the kitchen, it will cost just a few cents. Step by step, cut the sponge into cubes about 1.5 centimeters in size. It doesn't need to be perfect, but try to keep it a size that fits well on the hook without being too heavy. Mix the fish oil, garlic powder, and salt in a small lidded container. Stir well until it becomes a thick, smooth liquid. Place the sponge cubes into the liquid, close the jar, and shake. Let it sit for at least 30 minutes, ideally a few hours or overnight in the refrigerator. The sponge will soak up the seasoned oil, trapping the aroma inside. In the water, you stick the sponge cube onto the hook, and, if you want, add a worm or piece of dough along with it. The sponge isn't eaten, but it's the aroma reservoir that will attract the fish to your hook. The secret here is simple. The longer you let the sponge soak in the oil before fishing, the stronger and longer-lasting the scent trail around your bait will be. To preserve them, store the soaked sponge cubes in their original container, tightly sealed. They will keep well in the refrigerator for several days. If you want to prepare a large batch, you can put them in a more resistant container and leave them in the freezer. Then just take them out the night before. Let them thaw and use them normally. The good thing is that, unlike pure natural bait, it doesn't spoil as quickly or smell so bad that it makes everything unbearable. If you want to boost it, you can add a little anise essence, that licorice scent, because many freshwater species in the U.S. react very well to that sweet aroma, especially carp and catfish. A little extra coarse salt helps preserve it, and also creates a faster diffusion of the scent when it comes into contact with water. Now, why can't you find something so simple ready-made on the shelves? Because it's not in the market's interest to sell a solution you can make at home for pennies, using a cheap sponge and oil you already have in your kitchen. It's much more profitable to push tubes of super attractant for $15 or $20 promising miracles. If everyone knows that a $1 package of sponge and a little scented oil does the trick, the profit margin of attractant manufacturers plummets. And then this type of technique becomes something only old river dwellers do, little discussed, disappearing from conversation, while the younger generation thinks they need a new spray every season to get results. In practice, the application is straightforward. In lakes, ponds, and slower-moving rivers, place a cube of soaked sponge on a bottom hook or a simple rig with a weight and let it work. A drop of oil that comes out of the sponge spreads over a much larger radius than the bait itself. For species like channel catfish and bullhead, this is gold. They follow the scent trail until they find your hook. During low-light hours, such as early morning and late afternoon, this type of chemical trail becomes even more important because vision is reduced. A common mistake is to overdo it, soaking it so much that oil drips onto the surface. This creates unnecessary mess and can even scare fish in very clear water. The right point is a damp sponge, releasing a constant scent, not turning into a puddle of grease. Click now, secure your access to high-level fishing, and let these strategies start transforming your next fishing trips. The link is in the first pinned comment. When you return from the water applying what you've learned, come back here and comment, "I caught more." That will be your commitment to your evolution in fishing. And perhaps it's exactly the step that separates the stories you hear from the stories you'll start telling. Imagine your next fishing trip. While the guy next to you spends $18 on a small bottle of premium bait, you cut a piece of kitchen sponge that cost pennies, soak it in that simple seasoned oil, and in a few minutes, your spot on the bank becomes a catfish meeting point. With each pull of the line, another fish enters the live well, and your friends start looking at your simple setup, trying to figure out the trick. You decide whether to reveal the secret or let them think it's just luck. In the end, it's always the same struggle: traditional knowledge versus pretty packaging. While the system tries to sell ready-made solutions in expensive bottles, the old-timers have already solved many problems with simple, inexpensive, and objective ideas. Those who understand this stop depending on what's in the catalog and start thinking like real fishermen, conducting their own tests, adapting to their own pond, their own fish, and their own budget. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss the next video.